All right, welcome to Learned Empowerment, where we learn and catalog the best knowledge the world has gathered to expand your mind, empower you as individuals, and make the world a better place. We have a great guest with us, Mary Gravett, and she is an expert in the mixed faith space. She's a university professor in Utah, raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She has been in a mixed faith marriage for 6 years. She's been the moderator for the Mixed Faith Marriage Facebook group, Marriage on a Tightrope, until last year, and has put in many hours of support helping couples navigate religious and other differences. And I'll have her give a little intro to what she's all about. Go ahead, take it, Mary.
Hi. Well, like I said, joined the Mixed Faith about 6 years ago, and we've gone through a few permutations of that. My husband left our shared faith originally, and he became an Episcopalian, and we were in that configuration for about 3, 4 years, and then he stayed Episcopalian, and I've become an atheist, and so now we're mixed faith in a new configuration, and just a lot of learning through that experience. Also, my time as a moderator in the mixed faith marriage group, in Marriage on a Tightrope, just was so valuable in learning and seeing this situation from so many different perspectives. That group does welcome couples from mixed faith marriages of all types. Most of them are partially from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but there are some atheist and Jehovah's Witness or atheist and evangelical Christian couples in that group as well. So just a lot of learning from that group and a great group of people. It was a good community to be part of.
Yeah, I've been in those chats and discussions, and just the level of empathy and caring and wanting what's best for the relationship, not so much fixated on, judging beliefs or religions. I was just amazed at the group you've gathered.
Well, thank you. And I just wanted to share like my three key takeaways from this space that I have been part of and continue to be part of. And it is quite inspired by Jonathan Haid's The Righteous Mind, because it is just such a powerful book. Um, and so my number one takeaway is doing whatever you can to reduce reactionary reactions in your relationship. So this is recognizing triggers where you react out of proportion to a situation and trying to figure out what works for you as a couple to slow that reaction time down. And we can get into that more, but that's my first key takeaway. Second key takeaway is differentiation. Recognizing that a relationship where there are a lot of similarities, maybe you think that it's just all similarities, or that the differences are superficial. Moving from that to a space where you acknowledge some large differences as a couple, it can feel scary and threatening, but you've always been different people. And I keep saying you, but I'm talking to this broader audience. People are different. They're very different under the surface. You can never really know a person fully. And so recognizing that and allowing a greater acknowledgement of differentiation in a relationship is so helpful. And then the third thing I would say is trying to move from, like you already mentioned, the things that you need to do for yourself and supporting yourself in your own position in a mixed faith relationship to where you can be more focused on what's best for the relationship. This transition of focus from self to the good of the relationship is just so important. I don't think that a relationship can survive if partners just stay in the place place of focusing on their own hurt, their own viewpoint, to the exclusion of the relationship.
Absolutely, yeah. I hear so many, pop philosophers and self-help people on the internet, on YouTube, on TikTok, and that me first is so big and so tempting and sounds so great. But I really think we need to have, a deeper understanding of what really it takes for good relationships to happen. And it is a balance. Like we don't be doormats, but we don't, sacrifice ourselves in the process, and we keep the goal of two people being happy in mind.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, well, I got some questions from people, and I'm going to ask them here. And the first one is about not necessarily the couple themselves, but those that are on the periphery of that relationship, the mixed faith marriage. A lot of people have, different opinions, different thoughts. They want to judge, like, oh, the reason you have this problem or that problem is because of the mixed faith or whatever. So my question is, what is the biggest disconnect or false idea for those other people in the lives of the mixed faith relationship that they would benefit from grasping and understanding? Like what do they not get that they would really just, everything would be a lot better if they just got a couple things?
Yeah. Um, I'm trying to answer this question from both perspectives, both being the spouse that was in the faith that I had stayed, I had been in. My husband moved away, and then moving away from Christianity myself. Um, and I think the biggest disconnect for those outside the relationship, the observers, probably is this, and maybe I'm speaking from the um, position and from the perspective of having navigated this relationship with much fewer bumps than a lot of people. But this idea of people outside the relationship perceiving a great chasm between these two. Now, if there's a difference in faith, they must really be rocking their relationship, or the one who is still in the faith that they shared before, they must despise or severely judge their spouse, and not giving enough space for spouses to want to work it out. I have heard of reactions from other people asking, if they were going to divorce, like immediately. That's what they're jumping to, or asking, are you going to live separately or kick them out? And just kind of bringing in these very large reactions and expecting one of the spouses to be totally on board with those very exaggerated responses.
That is such an interesting response to me, because I grew up in a similar background where, it was very black and white, all or nothing. The faith was central, and if there is any rift in that, then that person must be cut off, and that's just how it has to be. Don't think too much about it. And I'm so glad that you're trying to temper that tendency and be like, no, there's other priorities, there's other goods here that we can work through and save. And it's just so funny to me that, like, this idea of, like, let's try to work through this is not more of the default from those outside.
Yeah. And of course, it depends on the perspective. My parents are both mental health providers, or were. They're retired now. And their response was very tempered and very, accepting, really through both of our faith transitions. And so it's not 100% of those outside of the relationship, but I would say it's a large reaction.
Very good. And kind of related to this, just, looking for, the lesser known nuggets of wisdom that you've gleaned and things that might be counterintuitive. What is the most surprising thing you've learned in working with people in this space for this long?
Um, the most surprising thing, I think, is it is some of these relationships don't last. That's not the surprising thing, but even after putting in a lot of work, doing all of the work, and really working on empathy, stepping back from your initial reaction, all of these things I've been talking about, even after all of that work and a long time working at it, some couples aren't able to stay together. And as a moderator in the support group, that was really just kind of devastating for us sometimes when we'd see these people say they weren't able to make it and they're leaving the group because they're no longer married. And yeah, it's something that none of us want to have happen in that space, but is obviously a reality that you have to accept.
So if I can paraphrase, correct me if I get what you said wrong, is you can do all the things that you can do, like all the right things, all the right behaviors, you implement, successful, skills and abilities and interventions. You do all those things, and still the relationship is just not going to succeed, despite their best
Not,
efforts.
yeah, not for everyone. I would
And
say
do you see any like
100.
do you see any like patterns of the successes versus the failures? Like I asked that question in the background of I fear that a lot of people watching this will just immediately be like, yeah, that's me, so why do all the effort? Because I know in the end that'll be me. They just kind of assume that the chasm will be too big. That's kind of my fear in the background of that question.
Right. Well, I would say to people going through a mixed faith relationship, I would say first, give yourself time and give yourself a long timeline. Maybe say, I'm not going to make a decision or really lean one way or the other about whether this relationship will work for 2 years. A long timeline. Really give yourself the time and not jump to that conclusion, right? You know, um, I think being slow to act is really important in this area. And as I was saying, it was most surprising when people had given themselves time and they still ended up ending the relationship. But I think that they gave themselves that time and they gave the relationship the chance that they had. And that's what I would encourage people to do is not jump to the conclusion this relationship is doomed. Give it time. Maybe it will surprise you in the opposite direction by working it out.
Interesting. And again, going back to the initial thing, and if you don't have an answer, that's fine. But I'm really curious because I like profile people, and even myself, like I see like, wow, I'm in this group because I just have natural subjective attraction to these different things, and we're all individuals. So like, do you see any like tells of like, oh, if they have this quality, they'll succeed. If this is important to them, they won't succeed. Like anything like that? Any patterns of success or failure based off of that, of like the traits or tendencies of each or both people?
Mm-hmm. Um, those people who joined the group without their spouse, if their spouse was unwilling to acknowledge the gray area that this relationship with two very different faiths is worth acknowledging and working on, more of them tended to then leave the group because they were getting divorced. Because if your partner can't show up or won't show up, then it's really hard to do some of these things that can lead to success.
Interesting. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And how sad that like it is a thing where one person is working, trying all the things, wants to save it, and the other person is just kind of, going with the flow. That's sad to me. But
Yeah.
we all have our choices and tendencies and things that are important to us, I guess. Um, in your support of others in the group and your personal history, what aspects of the concept of healing come up most in the mixed faith support group? I again kind of give more context to this of like, I'm just imagining that a lot of people are joining this probably shortly after some sort of faith crisis or faith change. And so there might be some baggage of like betrayal or confusion or anger. And so the person that asked this is like, what is helpful to heal before we can, go on to the other aspects of making the relationship work? Like, do you have any insights on that aspect?
Yeah, and I would say it's very individual, it's very personal. For me personally, healing required vulnerability, like actually being willing to talk about the pain and the hurt, and I say confronting it, but not in a confrontational way. Just being in that space with my spouse and not turning away from it. For some people, especially those who've transitioned away from their faith, being in that space, sometimes they do need to heal before they join it because it's a space, and I'm talking specifically of this group, that is available for people of all faiths, from all situations, to be talking about their faith, to be describing it, and some of those conversations could be triggering. So, within a relationship, I would say vulnerability is key. Talking through the hurt, talking through those feelings of trauma, and maybe asking a therapist or a counselor to help you with that part of the relationship might be key. If you don't feel like you can walk through that vulnerability with your spouse or with your partner without a therapist. And then applying what I said about the group to a relationship, maybe ask each other to have a few key topics that are just off limits for a while to provide a little bit of space for that healing so that then you can come back in a healed way to then later be able to address those topics and talk about those things.
Okay, I'm gonna say something that again I just kind of imagine, or like really this basically happened to me, although it's a complicated story. So tell me, number one, if you think this statement reflects a person in a good healed space, or if I or that person needs to do work, and then just your general reaction. Like you said, be vulnerable, and to me that means like kind of kind of blunt, kind of honest. Hopefully you're still kind, but like I'm just imagining this scenario where it's like the spouse who stays and the spouse is talking to the spouse who left and says something along the lines of like, when we entered this relationship or got married, we had the same goals, we were looking together in the same direction, we were united, and now I feel like you've taken that dream away from me. I feel betrayed by you. Like now this is like not what I signed up for. Like that hurt and disappointment. Like,
Yeah.
can you speak a little bit to that? Is that fair? Is that mean? Like it feels blaming, but it also feels like I don't know.
So my initial gut reaction is the person saying that to their spouse isn't healed, but they're on their way to being healed. And if you can make space for that conversation, that's going to potentially cause some breakthroughs. So, but I would say this kind of conversation where you are going to be brutally honest about your hurt, about a topic, it needs to be carefully planned. Not, how the conversation will actually go necessarily, but what you do, in my experience, what you do is you say to your spouse, I want to have a conversation about this, where I'm going to express some vulnerable feelings, and some of these things might hurt you because I need to express my hurt. When is the best time for us to do this? You schedule a time so that both of them are prepared for the conversation. Then the spouse that is going to be spoken to, they know going into it that they're going to hear some things about their spouse's hurt that might hurt them, and they can prepare themselves mentally to just be supportive. Limit their reaction. Just don't allow themselves to react. Just be there to support. And know that their spouse will do the same thing for them in a future conversation. They should then later ask for the same opportunity where their spouse will just listen, just be supportive, and and the other one can let their emotions out.
Wow, I love how you said that and gave like a framework for that, and you're answering like a question I've had for relationships in general for a while, which is, you're in a tough conversation and something happens and that triggers or creates a need for one person, and then the question becomes like, whose need takes priority? And I love what you said. Just have it be kind of a formality where like the first conversation I just want to listen and validate and support and hear the one person, and then once they're all done, they feel seen and heard, then it's the other person. Don't try to make it this ad hoc back and forth. That seems like it could run into problems.
Well, and even so, this is an idea that I just barely listened to the Righteous Mind again, and he gives this suggestion of how can you engage with people who come to you from a different political stance or a different religious stance, and he said, basically, this is not his words, but you have to add money into the account before you can take it out, right? And saying, I'm not going to bring up my own hurt in this conversation. I'm going to make sure we have space in between where we can add money to our account first before I then ask for my turn to, make a withdrawal. It's really important. It is important to have this, to prioritize positive time between difficult conversations.
Yeah, that's reminding me all sorts of what John Gottman says about, 5-to-1 positive ratio. There's got to be that safety and trust and positive affect for those things to be successful. Very, very good concepts. Okay, that kind of dovetails into this next question. What is something counterintuitive that you think it's important for people to understand about communication or relationships in general? Like, I'm asking this of like, I feel like most people, including myself, like we kind of just react in situations. So what's something that you can like reprogram of like, okay, you might feel like you should do this as an impulse, distrust that impulse, do this other thing that is not natural instead.
So I do want to bring up the Righteous Mind again. I can't recommend this book enough. But the first portion of that book is just going through research that has shown that our brains are extremely reactionary. And then we go back and make post hoc rationalizations for that immediate reaction. So he gives the example of people who are neophiles or neophobes. Some people who are very interested in new things and their immediate reaction is a positive one. So they create a rationalization for why it's positive to experience new things. Neophobes, people who are hesitant or averse to new situations, new people, new foods, they have this disgust reaction, and then they create a justification for it. So I would say this is very counterintuitive, but noticing your reactions about people in your relationships and really asking yourself, is that fair? Is that a fair reaction? Because, so for example, um, people, questioning what their spouse will do in the future. If they no longer hold certain values, well then how can I trust them? they might do this, 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 or this. It is, I believe, a gut reaction, maybe not disgust is the right word, but there is a gut reaction, and then that is justified by these ideas. They might do this, they might do this, they can do anything. They're a different person than I thought they were. Um, and it's really important to question that. It is absolutely vital to question that, because if you don't, you are turning your spouse or your partner into a stranger. And they're not a stranger. They're really not. So frequently in the group, there are websites that have lists of values, things that people value, such as fairness, integrity, hard work. And they don't exactly align with religious beliefs. A lot of religious beliefs are based on these values, but they're not caused by these values. And the values aren't solely attached to religious belief. And so frequently, people in that support group were surprised to, in talking over these lists of values with their spouse, that their values really hadn't changed, even though their faith had. And so I would say, yeah, absolutely. Question those gut reactions you have about your spouse, and ask yourself, is this gut reaction and what I'm saying it means really fair? Does it reflect reality?
What's the smallest step that would get us closer to that? Because like you said at the beginning, the natural tendency is to have a reaction and then post hoc justify it. How do we gain the maturity to say, like, my initial reaction was probably biased and wrong? Like, we don't want to see ourselves that way, is my thought. So how do we gain that maturity and that fairness? Like, we can ask ourselves, is that fair? But if we already have such a propensity to be unfair, how do we break out of that?
Um, well, I would say being around people who encourage that, whether that's getting a therapist, whether that's joining a support group, whether that's having a friend to vent to that is a friend of the marriage, not just a friend of you, right? A friend who you can vent to that will then point you in the direction that will be helpful for the marriage. And my husband absolutely had that. He had a friend who he vented to, who was also going through a faith transition at the same time, and they both prioritized pointing each other in the direction of what was best for their marriages.
I love that so much. That is so great. That is a game changer if we can find that and get that objectivity and concern outside of ourselves. That is brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
Uh,
Go ahead.
well, I wanted to bring up some ideas that I didn't mention before that can help with this slowing down your reaction time. Because that is so difficult. I definitely had moments where I said to myself, "Oh, I was very reactionary in this," you know. Um, but one of them was this scheduling conversations ahead of time with each other. Another strategy that we came up with was when when we were both in the same religion, it seemed very easy to support each other in our religious efforts, in our pursuits. Um, but then it became really hard when we weren't on the same page, maybe because we were questioning each other's motives. And so we didn't want to be asking permission of each other for anything. We're not each other's parents. We don't have to treat each other like children. But we wanted to give each other space and time to come around to changes that might happen. So, for example, when I was still a believing member, my husband was not, and he wanted to try alcohol. He didn't ask for permission to bring it into the home, but he did say, "I want to try this. I am going to. this certain number of, weeks or months in the future, and we have this time between now and then. Let's talk about it. Let's get things worked out about your feelings about me trying alcohol, about me having it in the home, so that before it ever happens, we've worked through this hurt. And that was so helpful, so very helpful to me. Um, I did that a few times for things that I wanted to do as far as like church callings. And we just said, we're going to let each other know in advance, not ask for permission, but let each other know so that we have time to process it. So that even if things do have that reactionary, that gut emotional reaction, you've got the time to go through it before it really hits the fan.
Yeah, I love that principle of not being a doormat, not being controlling or demanding, but just being like, hey, this is what I want, and to whatever reasonable extent I can, I want to include you. I want you part of this process. I want to do anything that will still end in this result, but anything along the way that would help you, accept that, prepare for that, or accommodate, both people's preferences as part of that. I mean, that is just the gold standard for relationships. Like, you care about the other person, but you're not giving up what you care about either.
Right.
Very, very good. Okay, did you want
I
to
think
say?
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, because it is a natural tendency to be quite codependent in relationships. And so taking a step back from that codependence can be difficult. It's uncomfortable. It's kind of unnatural sometimes if you've been living very codependently. But it's great once you get around, once it becomes more natural, once it becomes a regular part of your relationship.
And just for the benefit of my audience, can you define what you mean by codependency, just like the 30-second version?
Yeah. Well, I would say, and maybe I should change this to undifferentiated, um, which is that the actions of my spouse are a direct comment on me, a direct response to me, a direct affront or offense to me, and being able to step back, treat each other as individuals, um, yeah, have that differentiation.
So kind of the main like line is I'm anxious about whatever they do versus like I trust that they're taking care of it and I don't have to control them. Is it a controlling thing?
You could even say, I'm anxious about what they're doing, and my anxiety is my responsibility. I can choose to be anxious about this, or I can choose not to. And eventually, we'll work through this, and my anxiety will lessen.
Okay, so codependency or differentiation, like one of the main markers is just a confidence in your own abilities independent of the other person. Like the other person doesn't control how you feel.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
I mean, they don't control your actions. They don't control your decisions. They don't control your emotions. And that is so unnatural for a lot of people in relationships. They think my spouse's responsibility is to make me feel happy and whole and complete. And I have not found that to be the case.
Yeah, I'm here to tell you that is like the default message of society is like there's something wrong with your relationship if they're not making you happy, fulfilling you, completing you. And I've always felt that there's something underlying wrong with that. Like they should add to your life, but they shouldn't be the foundation of your happiness. That just seems shaky to me.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a hard one. If you don't have an answer now, that's fine. We're going to do a follow-up video. I think we already talked about. Um, but what advice do you have for, especially, I mean, all relationships deal with this, but especially mixed faith relationships. What advice do you have for mutually exclusive decision makings, i.e., no matter how you slice it, like one side is going to win, the other side's going to lose, or at least, get something that, can't be divided or changed. Like the default example is like the decision to move to a place. Like you can't move to two places. I mean, some people try, but like in all practicality, it's once and done, and that's it. And especially for like how you teach your kids and which beliefs that we promote, like all of these things, it's kind of a lot of, one side wins, the other side loses. So just in that area, do you have any advice or tactics, especially when we want to like keep both sides happy and ward off resentment when the reality is like you will have win-lose situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit for one of my suggestions, which is get talking about this decision far in advance so that whoever is the loser, let's say, they've had a long time to talk about it, process it before it hits, right? So we're talking about moving, like be talking about moving a long time in advance, 6 months. When my oldest child got baptized, we were talking about it for a long time. A lot of those conversations of my husband expressing his frustration that she was being baptized in my church. Um, for a long time before the actual event happened. So give yourself time. Most of these win or lose events, you can foresee them. You can look ahead and plan for them. So why not? Just give yourself time. Okay, that's number one. Number two, um, really have yourselves evaluate how important it is to you to be the one who decides this matter. Maybe you have a preference, but you recognize your spouse has a stronger preference. It means more to them to make the decision. Um, this can't always be the deciding factor because maybe one spouse always says it's more important to them, and that becomes very unfair. Um, but if that's not the case, if it is the case that sometimes your spouse feels more strongly about one thing, sometimes you feel more strongly about another, then that can be a good rule of thumb for, you say, rate your passion on this matter 1 to 10, and just do it numerically. Whoever has the highest number, 1 to 10, you decide to go with. Unless you have the situation where one spouse is always saying, "I'm a 10." That's just not sustainable.
Yeah, yeah, very good.
And then my number three um, for that is build a discussion, a conversation with each other where you say to each other, we are sometimes going to do the thing that's more important to me, and sometimes going to do the thing that's more important to you. Um, Build the expectation that it's a give and take relationship. So even in the moment, if it's really painful that your spouse got their way on this issue, there's no way for you to get what you want. You know that the priority in the relationship is sometime in the future you will be prioritized. You will get your way. And you need to see that. You need to see that in action. That's one of these things we talked about, putting money in the bank before you can take it out. Um, it needs to be something that you think about, you prioritize. I'm going to do this because I know it will give my spouse a win, and they need a win.
Yeah, I wonder, you can push back at this, but in my one of my earlier questions about like what traits or attributes make a relationship fail, and I wonder if one of the propensities to be like, oh, the only option is, divorce or end it is because they don't maybe want to say this, but they do expect to get their way in this area 100% of the time. I know my faith tradition is like, no, like the church and what they teach is what you do every time, every time. And so I wonder if that is related.
It it could be. I would say I came at this experience of becoming a mixed faith couple from a very nuanced, kind of willing to see the gray position anyway. So, I never was one to just say it's got to be my way every time. But absolutely, there are people that way that see the situation that way, and perhaps that does lead to a higher divorce rate.
Yeah, it's just something that resonates with the limited amount that I've seen. And it goes directly into my next question. I'm big about boundaries. I think that expectation of like sometimes I'll lose, but my spouse will have my back in the future. And same thing. I'm not going to get, my way all the time, or those are healthy boundaries and expectations. What are some other specific boundaries you felt are really important to a good relationship in this context? And then a separate question is a good boundary for extended family as well, just like one or two in both those arenas.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dave and I had and I suppose we still do, had a rule called the push-pull rule. And it was he was not going to try to push me out of the church that I was in, and I wasn't going to try to pull him back in. And we just operated under that expectation. And this applies to your other question with family. Um, I expressed that rule to our family members. I said, we are not going to try to change each other's minds. That's just not what we're going to do. And so they knew I wasn't going to be an ally in trying to make him change his mind back, right? Um, they they had that expectation from the beginning. I had one family member approach me once who said, "We want to do a fast for 40 days. One person of the family fasting every day and try to bring Dave back to the church." And I said, "If you do, coordinate it without me. Don't expect me to fast. I am not part of this." Um, and they never mentioned it. I don't know if they did it or not.
Wow, I love that. That's very reasonable. Like what you said in the beginning of like some topics you just have to agree not to go there. And that's hard for me. I want to talk about everything and be authentic and whatever, but with stuff like that, it really is a violation.
Yeah, yeah, and the problem becomes when you draw a boundary for the relationship, but it's not the boundary that you want personally, right? And and I could have indulged in that for me personally at that time. I did want him to come back to the church, to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's what I wanted. And so there can be relationship boundaries that are in conflict with your personal interests and wants, but respecting them, I think, is an attribute necessary for a successful relationship.
Very good, very good. Okay, yeah, this is dovetailing right into the other question. So what are two characteristics or qualities you believe contribute most to the long-term success of a mixed faith marriage?
Uh, hmm. I would say probably working on slowing down your reaction time is number one. Um, because discussions of religion just do have the power to hit us, to ignite something in us in a very emotional, primal way. It just does, and it's part of part of Jonathan Haidt's book says that religion has been something that's part of society, part of forming groups, tens of thousands of years. And so it does something for us, right? And it gets us in that very primal place. So learning how to slow that reaction time down, I do think is vital. Um, if I had to say one more, it would be doing some recognition of the values that your spouse has, even though they're from a different place, coming from a different viewpoint, coming from a different place, recognizing the values that you have in common. What can you still say? Yeah, we're on the same page about this. Um, Absolutely, we want to teach our kids hard work. We can get behind that. Absolutely, we both value honesty. And so that means we're going to hurt each other sometimes by being too honest. But it's one of our values that we can still say we're on the same page. So we're going to lean into that.
Yeah, I forget where I got this from, but like even in the deepest of disagreements, you can always find one thing to agree with, like their motivation or their aims or, one positive thing if you went to that. Like if you can convey that to people, they feel a lot more understood and safe and accepted and loved, and you're preserving that love tank that you've been referring to. I like that a lot. Um, what are your recommendations for balancing the need in a relationship to keep the peace, including not fixating about faith differences, keeping up those boundaries of, not pushing and pulling in relationships versus having profound conversations and being honest and authentic and being open to differences and accepting different points of views? Like, how do you recommend feeling out those two seemingly contradictory ideals?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back again to having some kind of mediation, because if you have a therapist, you're going to be forced to come into those conversations when you're feeling the tendency to lean away. And also when you're really deep to the differences and you're not, giving yourself space for your more rational thoughts, then the therapist is there to mediate that too. So or a friend to vent to, so that you can show up with the venting done, or joining a support group. I really do think um, there is just a great um, effect of having some kind of person or group to mediate those tendencies to either withdraw or just overwhelm your partner.
Yeah, or what I have learned recently, like fawning, like appeasing for the sake of the relationship too much. It's so hard. Like I really was given the belief that like in order to succeed, you have to serve more, you have to sacrifice with no expectations on them. And I've just realized now that like no, you can be taken advantage of and become resentful if the other
Well, and
person.
it's damaging to the relationship, right? To have one partner who's always giving, it's just not healthy to the relationship. It's damaging.
Yeah. Um, this one, I think you have answered, but I'm just trying to go about it in a different way. Like, I'm going back to the authenticity part. Like, I think different beliefs within reason, obviously, there's extreme examples we could think of. We're not talking about those. But all beliefs deserve toleration of like, okay, I don't agree. I don't think that's cool and good, but like, if that works for you, we can coexist. Like that to me is kind of toleration. But I really struggle with this idea that like every belief deserves respect of like, oh, that's good. I like go you, like do more of that. Like I really think that's a good thing. Like what do you do if you really think a belief is dumb or damaging? Like how do you like navigate that when it's like your sincere belief that like this is really wrong and I can't respect that. Like I can maybe tolerate it within some healthy boundaries of like, it can't negatively affect me or my loved ones, but I really just have seen a couple circumstances where like the other partner does expect that like no, you're gonna act as if this is all good and cool and there's no problems here. And if you make me feel like there's something wrong with this belief, then that's the bigger problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Um, I think that partners should not demand more than tolerance. Um, but also, the tolerating spouse doesn't have to express their level of just tolerance, not respect, every single time that they could.
Okay, okay.
And I run into this a lot with thinking about parent-child relationships, where you know there are people who say, love the sinner, hate the sin, in a child-parent relationship, it's going to lead to a lot of distance and maybe no relationship at all. And in a marriage or in a partnership, it's going to lead to a split because you cannot be constantly expressing displeasure or disrespect for something that the person is doing, that they believe, that they're acting on, and expect them to stay with you, right? And so then coming back to like the parent-child relationship, expressing your displeasure with what your child is doing once is enough for them to know that what they're doing you don't approve of, right? If they're a small child, you're going to stop them from it. You're going, I'm not talking about small children, but teenage to nearing adult children, after you say it once, you you know that they know it, and you don't need to express it again. They're going to know it, and you're not going to damage the relationship by continuing on with that. And I think that that's more difficult to apply in a partnership because they have more emotional connection with you, that vulnerability, and so that means that there's greater hurt that comes in with them doing things that you don't approve of, but I would say it's worth the effort. And
Yeah,
then
that's
on the other side, spouses really can't ask their partner to do more than tolerate their different beliefs. I really don't think that you can ask for more than tolerance.
oh, good. I'm glad you said that because I have been asked to respect pretty heinous things, and I just have never thought that was right. Like, you can compromise, but if you genuinely disagree, you shouldn't have to pretend like it you're agreeable to it, you know?
Right. No, I mean, I think it's pretty clear to people who are looking at research into morals, into ethics. Every ethical position, every moral position that you can take, every religious stance you can take, it's subjective. There's no way to say this applies in every situation.
Right, right. And we're going to ask one more question, just kind of a lightning round. I'm going to say some phrases, and I just want to get your reactions to them. I might say them in a way that I might imagine them being said in a conversation, just kind of unpack it for us and maybe replace it with something better. And then we'll finish up with any of your other thoughts or things you want to say, and then we're about done. Does that sound good?
Okay, sounds
Okay,
good.
so first phrase is, but I need to be authentic.
Oh, you don't have to be a jerk though.
Okay, the next one might be similar. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, if you need to be honest, then schedule it, make priority to put that money in the bank first.
Okay, the next one. But, dear, this is what God wants.
Uh, I would say this is a very difficult one, but like just being honest, that does not speak for my relationship with God, or I don't see that. I don't buy into that. And you don't have to be disrespectful. I mean, maybe saying I don't buy into that is could be perceived as disrespectful. But just saying clearly, I do not have to believe that. That's okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of my own answer to that is I would be tempted. I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I would say I can see that you believe that, but I believe something different. We have two equal beliefs here, and that's great that you believe God said that, but someone else can believe God didn't say that. We have to allow for both. You know, like the way they said it is wrong. In my view. Like I don't have to say it that way, but I think there is something wrong with one spouse thinking like I represent God's will. I think that's inherently
Yeah.
suspect in this context. Like if you both agree that God speaks the same way, maybe that's fine. But in this
Right.
context, I don't think that's okay.
And this brings up a point in Marriage on a Tightrope. The moderators, a large portion of our work was talking to people about expressing their opinions. Absolutely, express your opinion, but do it in a way couched in language that recognizes the difference of beliefs within the group. because that's a practice for them to take from the group to their narrative. Practice speaking about your beliefs with language that recognizes other people's beliefs.
What are some rapid fire phrases that do that? Like, this is just my thought, or like just give us some phrases that help kind of
Yeah.
do a slow start and give people that respect and deference.
Yes. In my perspective, or from my viewpoint, because if you're talking about your perspective, your viewpoint, that inherently recognizes there are others. So, talking about it that way, it's my belief or the way that I interpret the scriptures. Okay, you can have a great conversation about different interpretations of scripture, right? Um, and even with people who don't believe in scripture as the word of God, but if you put it in the way that I interpret this, it's welcoming of everyone's perspective, and and you can express what you believe, and it doesn't hurt when someone else expresses their beliefs.
Yeah, this is reminding me of Chris Voss. He's a communication negotiation expert, and he says that like think of your words as inviting, like you're on a stage play and you're taking on a role, and whatever you're about to say, like in improv, is giving the other person a role. So if you're right and you're giving the other person the role of like you're not part of the program and you need to come over to my side because I'm right and you're wrong, that's inherently conflicting. But if you just say, this is one possibility of many, then you're leaving open and inviting that discussion of like, what are the other possibilities? I'm open to them versus closed. I mean, it's just a subtle thing, but I think it makes such a big difference. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Some people really do lean into conversation ending statements, um, but that's not the kind of stuff that we really want in working through a mixed faith relationship.
yep, and that's the very next phrase. Let's just agree to disagree.
I mean, I'm guilty of this. It is a conversation ending phrase, but I do use it. I'm guilty. So now you have to tell me what's the appropriate response to this.
So I unpack it for like 5 minutes. I'm like, because now I know about the bite model and elements of coercion. Like, if the purpose of that phrase is to end a discussion before both people are satisfied with a resolution, then the answer is no. Like, we can't agree to disagree. We have to have some mutually satisfying outcome. We have to feel understood. If we haven't done that yet, we have more work to do. And I appreciate that you're tired. We can take a break. We can do whatever you need. But we have to come to a solution that's mutually agreeable.
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to my idea of scheduling disagreeable conversations. It is okay in the middle to say, can we continue this conversation at another time? That's a better way of saying it than agree to disagree, even though I'm guilty of it. But absolutely saying, no, can we finish this at another time? I thought that I could be emotionally, ready for this conversation at this time, but it turns out I'm not. And an emotionally mature partner will say, yes, let's continue this at another time.
Yeah, and you're touching on something that I think is one of the biggest differentiators. Like, a lot of my relationships, I'll have a partner that will do that, will say that, but really that's just another way to just not bring it up again. But it's the partners that really
Mm-hmm.
do mean that, like, okay, maybe not now, but later, and they follow up. I mean, that's huge. The difference
Yeah.
between lots of different topics that just get pushed under the rug and like bringing those back up and really solving problems, that's a huge differentiator to me.
Yeah, I mean, just you can even say, let's talk about this again in 3 days. Like, doesn't have to be a specific time, and location, but you could just say, like, give me 3 days. I'll be more emotionally ready for this again. Like, but scheduling it, you're not pushing it under the rug. You're saying we will address this again. Be real about that. Like, if you don't want to talk about it, if you really are just withdrawing from from a topic that's important to your spouse, um, again, I'm going to say probably you need a therapist. You need someone to help mediate that conversation because you cannot avoid conversation topics that are important to your spouse indefinitely. It's not going to work to keep the relationship.
Amen. Hallelujah. 10 stars, no notes. I love it. Okay, last one. I'm going to try to throw this a curveball. I'm going to try to make this better, but still, you'll know what's wrong with it. From my perspective, I feel like what you're saying is coming from an evil influence or Satan.
Yeah, expressing your thought as a feeling is not okay in most circumstances because it's kind of passive aggressive. You know, and maybe the response is, you're responsible for your feelings.
I like that. I like that.
You
Yeah.
feel that way. You feel that way. If you don't want to be feeling that, you got to change your thoughts.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much for answering those questions. Do you have any final thoughts or a conclusion for us?
Oh, I would just say people in a mixed faith relationship, if it's a marriage or partnership or with a child, just don't give up. The relationship is worth it, even if it's different than how you pictured it when it began, or even if it has some really difficult moments. I would say, we imagine these scenarios where we would do painful things for the people we love. What about just staying in the relationship? And I'm not talking about abusive, but just staying in an uncomfortable space. Sometimes you have uncomfortable religious conversations. Sometimes you run into situations where only one of you can win. Is it worth it to do that to have the relationship? I would say yes, it is. Don't give up. Keep doing the work. It's worth it.
Yeah, you fell in love with them once. There's that possibility is still there. And just speaking from experience, like I just find it funny how like a lot of divorces, and I can't judge. I really can't. I'm projecting
I
100%.
can't either.
But like there are problems with the relationship, and they throw away the whole relationship thinking naively that some other relationship is going to have no problems. That's just naive. Like you're just trading for different problems. Like ask yourself, I've committed to this person once. Is there enough there to build a life still? Because you can always build a life with someone else, but like you're still going to have to work through things. And a lot of the stories I hear of people in these situations of like, oh, our lives were great until this faith crisis, and then I was compelled, like they have more choices, and it's not that black and white and simple. And if you maybe, worked harder, it could have been. Like, I'm not saying every relationship is there, but you should, like you said, consider 2 years moratorium, like really, really try.
And again, I'm not talking about abuse. I am not talking about if your marriage had problems before this came up, most likely this isn't going to help with those problems, but that doesn't mean the relationship ending is because of the faith transition necessarily. So I'm not saying stay in it no matter what. But if it really is the faith transition, the faith change is the only deciding factor, don't give up. Keep working at it.
Yeah, that's very wise. You might be tempted, but defer and postpone, take a few beats and reevaluate. Very, very good advice. I love the way your brain works, Mary. Thank you for coming on today. I can't wait till you're on again.
All right, sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you.